Initially, I was simply curious about the beginnings of the International Day of Peace, a story of events in space and time. What I found in 5 hours of interview with Avon Mattison was a story of courage and deep longing for peace. I want to share with you what spoke to me, her call to each of us to find our personal path to peace, to understand that our personal daily practice of peaceful living is intimately connected to the state of planetary peace, and to know that we each have the potential to change the course of history for the good of all, as Avon has done. Her story gives me hope, the fuel of social change. So I want to start at the beginning.
Yes.
And when were you born?
I was born in 1941.
Uh-huh.
I had the question, why are we fighting? Why is everyone killing each other and devastating the earth in the name of peace?
Right.
And so at that time, I had an extraordinary experience.
I'm very curious.
All right. This is the deeper story that I rarely tell. It occurred when I was about 3.5, going toward 4. There was an experience that I had in answer to my question that basically showed the planet as in its entirety, and showed that all life on Earth was interconnected and living as one interconnected life, and how this Earth was part of this entire solar system, and this solar system was part of other solar systems, and this galaxy was part of a galaxy, and how this galaxy was part of other galaxies, and in these beautiful sort of septenates. There were 7 of each. I don't know why didn't at that time. And then brought back to Earth, and was shown the evolution of life from single-cell organisms all the way to what humanity would be like in the 21st century and beyond. And at that time, I made a commitment to dedicating my life to peace. The assignment was that it was important for an idea to come to humanity, and that was the idea of pathways to peace, that everyone and everything is a pathway to peace. And when we understand that, then we see that there's this beautiful, intricate kind of larger plan or pattern unfolding, and we're all part of it. And at the center of this was just pure energy, one would call pure light, pure energy, but it was as if we were all connecting, as you would say, to the one heart, to that one spirit, to one source, and that everyone had their own unique contribution to make, and every field had its own unique contribution to make, and in the larger field of peace. And that at some point this idea would need to be made, brought into greater reality, and that at some time it might be necessary to form an organization with that name that would be unusual in the way that it organized, that it would be very important to create a universal day of peace that eventually all nations and all humanity would participate in. And that,
so the seed of that idea was fairly concrete.
Very.
When you were 4.
Very. Not quite 4. Very specific. And it was, this had to be created through the United Nations, which didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
There was no United Nations. That one day it would be communicated through all forms of media, both through human beings and their, what we would call prayers and meditations, silence, whatever form. And that it would be communicated through also in other forms. And at that time, what was interesting is it showed the old-fashioned typewriters, and it had like a little tiny movie screen above it.
Yeah.
Like, because there were theaters, but obviously nothing else. And on top of that, and somebody would type in something, and pictures and words would show.
Yeah.
And then on top of the radio was another little miniature, like movie theater screen.
Yeah.
And that had pictures and people speaking and images showing around the world, and that apparently was a television. And that all these were connected to these great silver objects that were orbiting the Earth, and lines were connecting them all energetically, and with electronic currents, but also currents connecting all the human minds and hearts simultaneously. And I guess those were satellites, and that's why this was so unusual.
You foresaw these?
Well, these I didn't. It was just basically shown, and so that was, and that this day would have to be created through the United Nations, because eventually it would begin with, then all nations would have to agree to this day, and that would help to bring it into a very much more practical reality.
Okay, let me take you back. You say it was shown. What do you mean?
Shown and told. I could see these things, but I'm not clairvoyant or any of that stuff. I
Right.
mean, none of that. So that's why they I think it was given to a very obtuse, ungifted person
Did you?
to show that if anybody can have this kind of awareness, if I can, anybody can.
Did you talk about it with people, or
No,
did you
I did.
draw it in pictures?
No, because I can't draw my way out of a paper bag.
Okay.
No. I spoke to it to a couple of family members and some adults, and they told me that my imagination was too lively and
Right.
to please not speak of those things again.
Right. So you didn't?
Never.
Never.
Never until I returned after the diplomatic service to the United States, and I spoke of it to Fritjof Kepler.
Give peace a voice, let our hearts be heard, sounding our choice to love and preserve. There's a light in us all, a polished pearl. Give peace a voice, uniting nations of the world.